What is this I'm feeling? Wanna leave, I'm with it.
Okay. I've been a teacher for 19 years. My mom is a teacher, and I'm married to a teacher, so I live in a kind of ongoing never-ending teachers' council. And her mom, of course, is also a teacher. And for 19 years, a lot of experiences, but it's only the last 6 years with iPads in my classroom that I really have achieved experiences that okay. I'll just keep talking and we solve the issue. If I was to have a conversation with the 2013 version of myself, the year when I got iPads to every student in my class, the 2013 version of me would have problems understanding my take and perspectives on teaching, planning, and assessment. There you go. So I'm trying to boil down the last 6 years of experience to 15 minutes, and it's all about finding and releasing my students' potential. We are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution. The first one was steam. Everybody knows about spinning jenny. The second one was electricity. The third one was automation. And the fourth revolution that we are now a part of is called with cyber physical systems, the Internet of Things. So 4 industrial revolutions. Isn't it time for the first school revolution? And also, if you think about the development, it is exponential. This is George Moore. In 1965, he observed and predicted what is now referred to as Moore's Law. And it says that every 18 months, the capacity of your computer will double. So after 1.5 years, it will be twice as fast as it was 1.5 years ago. He is one of the founders of Intel that makes processors for your computers. And Intel themselves says that the law hasn't kept up to speed. Now we're down to 2.5, 3 years for every doubling, but still the speed of the development is mind-boggling. And because of that speed, John Seely Brown has told us that we have to change the perspective of our education. When my parents took their education, they could rely on their education for almost a generation. They could use what they learned when they took their studies for 30 years. But because of the fourth industrial revolution, now John Seely Brown says that after 5 years, the education you took is becoming outdated. So the most important thing that we teach our students is how to learn. And not only how to learn, but they need to recognize when they have learned something. And we all agree on this, and oftenly this is referred to as the 4 C's: creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. But when I did research on the 4 C's, I was surprised to find out that there's actually 6 of them. The 4 C's we all agree on. That's the bottom 4 words. But the top 2 words are maybe the most important of them. The strongest of them, citizenship and character. Because, to put it like, if you are creative, but without the sense of citizenship or character, it's most likely that you are one of the internet trolls, because, let's face it, the internet trolls, they are quite creative, but they are not with a character or being nice to their fellow citizens. So we all agree on this one. We are in the revolution. Things are developing mind-boggling fast, but still, if you look at the classroom, not much has happened. So how can we have successful implementation of devices? Well, you have to start with paying attention to the digital triangle. If this is not there, you will not be a success. Your hardware needs to be reliable and trustworthy. 10 years ago, I had 16 laptops in my classroom. It could take up to 45 minutes to get logged on for every student. 45 minutes out of a 60 minutes lesson, that's quite much. Now, with iPads, it's one click and the device is ready. Software. The software needs to bring something more than just a PDF version of the existing textbook. And please, do not try to replace the teacher. So when you talk about adaptive learning, I'm not listening. You need to make me stronger in the choices I want to make when I'm interacting with my students. And on the top of the triangle, we need competent teachers. Teachers that are competent, that doesn't mean that you need to know everything about your device. But that means that you have the competence of daring. You need to dare to try. You need to face your students not knowing if it will be a success or not. And if you fail, you need to learn from your mistakes. And if you are a success, you need to learn from the success so you can reproduce your successes. But you need to dare to try. And it all revolves around the student, because the main goal is for the students to learn. So if this is in place, this was my classroom 10 years ago. And I was standing in front of them like most teachers do, talking for 25 minutes. And I could observe the lights, the flickering lights in the eyes of the students flicker and disappear for every minute I was talking. Some of the lights were already gone when they entered the classroom because of life. And some of the lights were disappearing because I said difficult words like multiplication or civil war or whatever I was saying. And when I was done talking, it was always the same four hands that was still shining, but they were ready at the get-go from before I started speaking. So instead of wasting the 25 minutes with me speaking, I've stopped with that. So these are my 6 pillars on my take on how I now plan, assess, and teach. I no longer lecture. I facilitate. I try to design processes where the students are genuinely wondering what the answer is. I need to find good questions. Questions like, what's the velocity of Oslo, the capital of Norway? How fast is Oslo? Strange question. You need to use quite time just to understand the question, don't you? How do you win a war? Most students can tell you when the war is won, but they cannot tell you how. So an open question, when I manage to give them open questions, I do what I call in situ teaching. So instead of standing in front, giving them answers to questions that they didn't know that they were wondering about, I go around the classroom, sitting down, participating in conversations about things that they ask me. So I answer whatever question that comes up. And if more than half the class wonders about the same thing, then I get in front of class. Because when the majority wonders about the same thing, they all listen. And when they get to own the narrative so they can ask the questions that they really wonder about, then they will listen and remember. And I make them producers of their own narrative and proud owners of the product. I need to make it relevant, give them real control over the process, and enough time to find their own pace. I cannot determine the pace. My pace is my pace. I have 30 students in my classroom. I cannot say that this pace suits every one of them. If I am successful, I get motivated and proud students. Motivated and proud students that hand things into me that they really want me to look at. They want the assessment. They do not dread it anymore. And when I manage this at my best, this is the potential I see in my digital classroom. There's a lower threshold for production. That means that every student can start the process one way or the other. Before there was the textbook and the pencil, now it's the iPad. There's a lot of ways to get started. If you get started and you get the direction, then more production happens. More productions, more rehearsing, hopefully more learning. The classroom is more efficient. Sharing is instead of down to take some extra copies on the copier. The classroom is more transparent. I know much more about my students now than I did before. I can monitor them where they are in their process, and I can push or pull or whatever I need to do to make them out of whatever learning pit that they are in. My digital classroom is more equal. Every student, my classroom now is like 50% with a second language. So the economic factor is not there because they all have their device that works that they have got provided by the school. And also it's equal because I can no longer distinguish between a girl's product and a boy's product. Before, a girl's product would have colors and flowers, and the boy's product will be almost unreadable, right? It's easy to communicate. There's a lot of platforms, if it's homework via Snapchat or just your usual LMS, and it's personalized. I can speak directly to each student wherever they are. So when I release this potential, I got time to show you one of the absolute proudest moments of my teaching career. I teach music, I teach math, and I teach social studies. So this task is from my music teaching. Because I thought that I was managing to give them understanding of music, but that was until I got the iPads that I understood that that was not the case. So I was sitting there, I had 116 students. I was sitting Friday night, listening through them, assessing them. So this came as number 67. And you can imagine listening to 116 different variations of a children's song is quite challenging. To get a high level of assessment, you needed to have a strong personal touch. So after 66, this one came. Okay, so she's making 4 variations over a known children's song. I have seen her play guitar, play piano, but I have never seen her play a band with herself. A bit more sound, please. Cheers. Variation number 2. I have 30 students in each group. To see each and every student 60 minutes a week, that's not enough. With this product in my hand, I could see much more of the student in 1 minute and 9 seconds. This is the 3rd variation. I was pleased, but then I got the 4th variation. And it brought tears to my eyes. How was I to know that she was able to sing a 4-part harmony with herself? So I was sitting there with my device and I pushed record. And I sang my feedback.
Here it goes. Kjære Thea, sangen du har
This is
laget,
singing feedback to my student.
synes jeg rett og slett er skikkelig fin.
Thank you. This is like my dream
Jeg
product I'm
tror
translating now.
faktisk den er akkurat slik
This
jeg
is what
har
I dreamt
drømt
about.
om. Og det er slik
And I
at
think
du
that you
har
were
vært
really,
skikkelig
really
flink.
clever.
Ja.
The smile on her face when she heard that feedback in class was priceless. So the teacher that I'm able to be with devices at hand, I absolutely love the teacher I can be. Thanks for listening.
Simen, thank you so much for what you told us about there. It's been really interesting to hear from you and to get your point of view from Norway today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed that. And certainly give Simen a round of applause and enjoy the rest of the day. So thank you, Simen. Thank you for that.